welcome to today's Potomac Conquer Risk podcast. We've got a couple of subjects we're going to hit today, one of which, of course, is subscriptions become more and more prevalent in our, not just our industry, but our world, whether it be cable or the newest, Prime. You want to buy stuff on Amazon. In this case, it's Schwab now has a $30 a month financial plan. We're going to dig into that, but also, this long bull run has mergers and acquisitions. Still, one would think that everybody who was going to be bought would be bought by now, but that's not the case. And there's another recent purchase, Orion purchased advisor, and Manish had some insight on that, so we'll discuss that and the way that affects integrations. So let's dig into the first topic, right? Schwab's $30 monthly financial plan. There's a little more detail than that, but what's your first take?
My first take is that it's great. It's good for the industry. Anytime you can deliver financial advice and investments to the masses, I think there's just a lot of people out there that don't have access to financial planning. And I think this is a good first step in terms of how it affects the advisor community. The devil is always in the details. And you took some time recently to dive into those details, especially the disclosures and whatnot. So what'd you find in that regard?
Yeah, well, I think this is a little bit interesting because, of course, this is done. Schwab did this in conjunction with their robo-advisor, right? So if you're going to do the Schwab $30 gig, you have to also use their investment vehicle, which is their Schwab, robo portfolio combination. The actual cost is $300 up front, and it's $30 a month. And like I said, the devil's in the details. This is what I found interesting. Once I get in the disclosure, the reality is if you were already a Schwab Robo user, your charge was 28 basis points on the assets, right? So if you were already a Schwab user, you get the lower of that fee or this new fee. Now, if you think about that for a second, a $25,000 account, which is the minimum of what Schwab requires you to have in order to have this capability of even choosing the financial planning piece, it's not really a separation. I mean, you get the planning piece in lieu of the fee. But when you narrow this down, Schwab expects the recommendation is you meet one time for 1 hour and then about 30 minutes every year after that. Do the math. $30 a month is $360 a year. Ongoing, they're expecting for a half an hour. So they're ultimately charging $720 an hour for financial planning. That's a pretty good gig.
Well, yeah, I mean, just based on the language, but of course it's unlimited calls, right?
Right.
And you had mentioned it earlier when we talked about this, that, what happens if someone literally calls every day? Will they continue to service that or cut it off? And the second tier or question to this is, how difficult will they make it for you to call? I have Florida Power and Electric down here, and it's almost impossible to get someone on the phone, even though, they make it known that you can easily chat with someone. So that's something to consider. We need to find someone who's actually using it, or maybe one of us sign up and start asking questions.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I said, it's a decent deal because of the fact that, I mean, look, we're supposed to be in the business to help people, and if this helps more people, then I'm all for it. I think the change is always scary to advisors, and I think a lot of times that's the take. But the reality is they're not doing anything different than most advisors. Right? Most advisors
let me
don't
jump
actually,
in. I think
go for it.
Here's the one thing that will help. Right? So let's say you're an advisor and you charge $2,000 for a financial plan, right? You finish the financial plan and you hand it to them, and then you charge $200 to $300 an hour, right? You and I know that client is then going to hesitate and think twice before ever calling you to change that plan, right?
Right.
Because if in the back of your mind if I get this guy on the phone for 2 hours, just to make these changes. So in that case, I think you might have more engaged customers knowing that it's just on a paid plan and you can call with any questions you have.
Sure.
Right?
Sure. Well, and that's, I mean, you're right. It's all about engagement. And I think anything that we can do to keep the clients more engaged is a benefit in the long run. And there's a tipping point, obviously, right? For those, the benefit is the people that were already using the Schwab Robo gig, because if they have enough assets, 28 basis points is going to be cheaper. And so this is just icing on the cake, right? They're getting it and not having to pay any extra. Now, of course, those details, right? Going back to the details. Well, yeah, they advertise that everybody's a CFP. All right. Well, in the last 5 years, you could go back probably a little longer than that, but Texas Tech, K-State, there's a number of schools, universities now that have financial planning programs, and in the end, you're going to end up with your CFP. That's great, right? Kudos to those that have their CFP designation. There's no mark there, but the reality is, you and I both know, odds are high that they're going to get a whole lot of folks that have really no experience. They've got all the book learning, but haven't met that good old-fashioned real world yet. So when you're calling in and yeah, you're getting a CFP, do they really have much experience? And that's another ticker, right? The reality is, it says in their disclosure, you're not assigned to anyone. They all take notes, and whoever happens to call. So it's just a big call center, is what it boils
Well,
down
I mean,
to.
it is. It's a call center, right?
Right.
So if you were an experienced CFP with real world experience, would you want to take a job answering calls for a $30 a month subscription?
No.
Probably not,
No.
right? And I always bring this back to the whole personal trainer versus going to the gym, right? LA Fitness is $30 a month. You can hire a personal trainer for $60 a session, right? Just
Right.
based on that cost, why would you ever get a trainer, right? But there's no guidance, there's no help, and are you going to get a, experienced trainer to come in there and help you at that level? And that's where I think it is good for the masses, and I think it is good for people starting out. But I just don't think someone with deeper needs or even a lot of money and is really going to want to step back into what I think is a solution for lower asset households.
Yeah, I think your mark on fitness is a perfect description, because my own experiences a couple of years ago. I mean, I was spending basically 45. I think it was because I did them at a discount, $45 a session, 3 times a week. I did that for about 9 months before I left and moved from one state to another. And I had another personal trainer that I met just start laughing at me like, "Why did you pay so much?" Well, of course, I'm helping this person move some furniture and what have you. It was one of my neighbors that I just had recently met there. Her description was, she tells you what to do, and it's up to you to go do it. Well, look,
It's accountability, right?
I need somebody right there. I told Shane, my trainer, I'm like, look, you won't have to yell at me, you won't have to scream at me, you won't have to make fun of me. You just have to tell me what's next. And he
Yeah.
used to laugh at me because he's like, I've never seen anybody go at this so hard. It's just a matter of, I tell you what to do and you do it. You do it as fast as you can, as solid as you can, and then I know you're dying, and you're asking me what's next. And it's that accountability. And that's where our financial advisors out there in the industry with experience need to have their elevator speech. They need to have their details of their value proposition available, because look, this is an easy one. If you've got some experience, this Schwab $30 plan, somebody comes to you and says, well, I could go to Schwab and get it. You should say, well, if that's what you think that you need, I highly suggest that you try it out.
It's just accountability,
Right.
and at the end of the day, it's accountability. That's what it comes down to, right? I
And
mean,
the
for
same-
$30 a
right.
month, you will get access. You won't get the same person over and over.
Right, that's a big-
You're not going to
that's
know
a
your
biggie.
personal needs, and that's not a bad thing. It just depends on your situation.
Correct.
Right. So ultimately, everyone. It is personalized to a certain point, and it just comes down to accountability.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, from that standpoint, I think it's a reasonable value. You have to understand that there is a cost involved, and it is what it is. I don't think any financial advisor should be worried about it. Embrace it, and that may be a way to just get people started if they're too small.
For sure,
you.
and I think we need to really make the point that LA Fitness can charge $30 a month because they have thousands of people who join, and those thousands of people don't all go to the gym at the same time. Right. So they're able to spread it out and scale, and this is no different. You use their robo. Schwab makes a killing on cash. They make money from the ETFs. So it's sort of the Amazon effect, right? Prime, next day delivery. They don't make money on Prime. They make it all on web service, right? And the cloud service. So, it's one of those lost leaders where, I don't think they're necessarily aiming to make money on the actual subscriptions. It's the other stuff, right?
Right.
Securities lending, cash, ETFs.
Yeah, no, you hit a big one right there. It's the cash. And so this is one of the things, again, another item from the disclosure, right? Okay, so you do the financial plan. You're signing up and you've got $25,000 to put into their gig, and so you get this robo scenario, right? They've got a big take on cash. And that is, they tell you up front, you're going to be assigned in the robo portfolio from 6 to 30% cash. Well, look, cash is a great tool from a conservative standpoint, from a risk management standpoint, but not to just set on it. And so there again, another thing to be aware of, because you can make your own personal, as a financial advisor, you can make your own personal argument as to why just holding on to, okay, you're a conservative client, you're going to hold on to 30% cash. Well, they're making money hand over fist on the cash, right? They're making money on their own using their ETFs. They're making money on all kinds of things, the trade execution. And then, oh, by the way, if you only have 25 grand, that equates to 1.44% that the client is paying Schwab for that financial planning and management capability. So Robo ain't cheap.
Yeah.
Despite what everybody says, right? Robo was cheap as the loss leader, and then all of these services that start get added in, and then the costs if you don't do the math, because people don't understand percentages. People don't understand percentages. They have to convert it to dollars to have it make sense. You're really not necessarily getting a great deal, but it's better than nothing. So, all right, moving on. Next topic, right? You've got some info on Orion and a recent purchase.
Yeah, so Orion recently purchased Advisor as a financial planning tool, and more also as a client portal too. But before that, let's take a step back. We've been with Orion for a long time. Yeah. Full disclosure, we do use them as our software provider. And I just think that years ago, when we first started, they had our CRM, our proposal system, everything built in. And they started unbundling that, and they were sort of the first to scream about integrations, right? We're only good at one thing, so if you want a financial planning, go integrate. If you want a proposal, go integrate. And what we've learned over the last 10 years is that the integrations just don't work very well. They're actually pretty bad. They sell them as a single sign-on. Thanks for saving me 10 seconds to sign on. And then they send over maybe name, email, address. So all these integrations are just at the surface level, right? And what's happening recently is a lot of these firms are now taking that all back, and they want to control the tech stack. Now, people can argue about this left and right, but InvestNet buying Money Guide Pro, Orion buying Advisor, these things are all adding up to larger companies recognizing that they need to control that tech stack. Fidelity buying eMoney.
Yeah, so
right?
That's another one for us. I mean, full disclosure, right? Fidelity is our largest custodial relationship, right? Just like we have used Orion for years, we've been working with Fidelity for 20 plus years. I mean, it's been forever.
Yeah.
And Fidelity bought eMoney, and that was one of the things for us from a financial planning standpoint. We were using Right Capital, and yeah, there are integrations and all these great things, but ultimately we looked at it and went, okay, it's more expensive for eMoney, but in the long run, if this is our major custodial relationship, why not make sure that is where we're going? And so we made a change ourselves. So again, just part of the full disclosure.
Yeah, and that's what I think Orion was lacking on the client portal and the experience, and they wanted to build on that. And I know they've tried different things, and there's a webinar coming up on August 2nd where they're going to dive into sort of the experience with advisors. So we're definitely looking forward to seeing that. But regardless of this purchase, I think in general that integrations for the most part in FinTech are dead. I think you're going to have to control the tech stack. You're going to have to deliver an experience from signing up a client to executing trades seamlessly and not have to be tossed around to all these different experiences. So it's working both ways, right? Fidelity bought eMoney and now is coming out with a TAMP. Orion bought Advisor and also bought a TAMP.
Right.
InvestNet bought Money Guide Pro, has an insurance exchange.
Right.
It's just slowly happening, and who knows, what's going to happen with TD and what the next step is. But, I think what this has really taught us is just, at least, we've gone through this personally, trying to set up some of these technology integrations, and they ultimately end up in disappointment, and you just move on.
Well, this is a part of the reason that this is important to us, and we've seen and run through this, not just with our own experiences, but with our relationship with financial advisors, as advisors have to make the decision to, oh, I'm working with this BD, I'm working with that BD, or I'm with this RIA, and they want to go and make a change for whatever reason. One of our top producers and longest relationships went from working with a BD to being an RIA, her and one other person. And in that experience, it was really eye-opening to see for both of them to see all of the expenses and all of the different decisions that have to be made in trying to create their own tech stack, right? Which is one of the reasons why, from our standpoint, putting all those sort of dominoes in order make a lot of sense, right? Because for smaller advisors, anybody who can put that tech stack together, put that combination of services together to make life easier, I mean, that's a win, right? Because let's face it, advisors, you have to run a business, but there's a spectrum, right? How much of the business do you want to run? How many decisions do you want to make? Or are you just really good at sales and relationships, and that's where you want to focus to grow your business?
Well, I mean, this is how TAMPs all got started, right? It was like, listen, focus on your clients, let the TAMP do the back office and all that stuff. And it's evolved a little bit. We're getting lots of calls from RIAs from 15, 20 million who they go out on their own and they can't afford Orion, or they don't have the staff to put this stack together. And it's not as easy as just signing up.
Right.
That's the easy part. To execute and to go through the systems, it's challenging, and this is where firms like Potomac can step up and maybe help, because we have that infrastructure already built, right?
Yeah, and sometimes it's a pick on the consolidation, right? We talk about aggregation, well, the consolidation. That one particular software that my former broker dealer had, that was, I don't know, a couple $100 a month is what we charged our advisors. Well, the same specific advisor suddenly goes out and as a two-person group trying to get that software, it's thousands of dollars a month. And it's just that whole concept, right, of scalability. Well, when you're one or two, you don't have scalability. When you're 500 or 200 or 10,000, right, there's a lot of things that happen. That's why you see some of these big behemoths, they sort of control the world when it comes to pricing. But, to each his own. Right, we all have to make those decisions and do our research, and that's part of the reason it gives us more things to talk about.
It does, and just to wrap this section up, I can go on Twitter and people will argue about integrations being great and how they send all this information. We've yet to find an integration that actually made sense, and I'm happy to see that they're all dying. You really got to pick a stack you're comfortable with, and from start to finish, hope it works together. So anyway, moving on, what recommendations you got for this this week?
Yeah, well, I've got a different one. And right now, we mentioned before, I'm living full-time in an RV. We travel around the country. So we've been out in Colorado and started doing, finally getting a chance to start doing some hiking. And I made a change about a month ago, and that was to get rid of my I loved my Columbia hiking boots, but they were really, I would say, probably over the top. They weren't waterproof. But they were hardcore hiking from the standpoint of really hard soles, and I liked them for what I used them for. But now I wanted waterproof. That was my big search: waterproof and comfortable. Because if I'm going to do some rock climbing or go do some other things, I wanted to have a little bit more flexibility. And I bought some Merrell Moab 2 waterproof hiking boots. That is my recommendation, because if you're going to go out and get it, now that I've done this, we just went on a hike again the night before last. It was about 2.5 miles, and up into the mountains and so forth on the Thomas Trail, the Kirkpatrick Trail, and Crystal Trail, and it was a blast. Right, we had to cross a stream coming down, a waterfall, and so forth. Yeah, the boots got a little bit wet. I did get in one spot; it was deep enough. A little bit got over the top of the boot, but they also wick away moisture so fast. My feet never felt wet, so I could hike.
So let me get this straight. The last 2 weeks last 2 episodes you recommend food, and now it's hiking boots.
Yeah.
See a pattern of eating and then trying to work it off.
Oh, hey, you got it. Yeah, life's a balance, baby. Life's a balance.
All right. So my recommendation for this week is going to be probably not applicable to anyone listening, but it's Leap. It's an animated kids movie that I have watched now 150 times on Netflix. and I actually dig it. And every time my kids ask for it, I'm like the first one to turn it on.
No way.
We just had our third, so it's a lot of at-home time, and it's a good movie to watch. Even if you're an adult, I thought it was entertaining. So why don't you watch it? Watch it tonight and report back.
Yeah, I'd go broke buying headphones for every one of the kids that I had. Of course, I only had one, so mine was a cheap exit. But I will say I'm really pleased that since my son is now 23, but there's a period at which not long after he was born, I think our industry, the movie industry, finally figured out that if you make movies, the cartoons and stuff that are funny for kids, but also have some adult humor and some things that we can get engaged in, then it's not so bad. Because
they'll go watch it. Well, I'm going to see Lion King this weekend with
I want to see
my daughter.
I actually do want to see that. Oh, you just
I rented the old. I rented the old one just to remind myself. It was actually made in 1994, so that's a huge difference between the second episode. And my parents saw it and they saw it was wonderful. So I'm gonna go this weekend and check it out. But yeah, to your point, if you can make something like that, I mean, we're ultimately taking the kids, so it has to appeal to us as well. So anyway, Leap, check it out. I want to get your feedback next week. Watch it with Kim and let me know.
All right. Well, we'll add that to the list because now we're caught up on Handmaids, and so we have to wait a week before we get another episode. So that'll give us something to watch. All right. So anything else on the docket for today?
That's it.
All right. Like, subscribe, do what you got to do. We appreciate it. We do record this video as well of our podcast, so those are available on the Potomac YouTube channel. But like I said, iTunes, we're available on Conquer Risk on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Pippa, you name it, we're out there. Let us know if you have any questions. Peace.
Thanks.